Thank you for coming to see me. My name is Nancy Adams, and I am 9 years old. It seems rather strange to be speaking to all you adults today, so do forgive me for my nervousness, for I was always taught that children were to be seen and not heard. I was born in Leominster, Massachusetts on July 7, 1820. I was named after my mother. In 1813, when I was 2, almost 3 years old, father and mother moved our family to Mont Vernon. We lived on a farm just down the road. It's where the Mont Vernon condominiums now are. My father, Dr. Daniel Adams, and my mother, Nancy, were always quite anxious for our souls. Nothing would bring them greater joy than to hear that we had an interest in Christ. And so they prayed for us often. Prior to moving here, Father was the head of a boys' school in Boston, Massachusetts. He was also engaged in the publication of an agricultural journal. Education was very important to my family. My father was a doctor, and my mother helped on the farm and to raise us children. I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters, Darwin, Daniel, Nancy, and Arabella. Nancy was born a year after I passed away, and so she was named Nancy as well. My sister Arabella, she died shortly after she was born, and so she is buried here as well. I like playing with my doll. I like my tiny teacup and saucers, and I liked also playing with my miniature toy furniture. As I got older, Mother let me help with some chores. I would gather the eggs, churn the butter, sweep, and do other household chores. As I got a little older, Mother let me sit with my brother, who was born in 1814. I felt like such a big girl watching over Daniel while Mother did her chores. So, while that was going on, my brother Darwin, he was out helping my father with his chores and taking care of the farm. Well, I died when I was 9 years old. I died on June 1st, 1820, just 1 month before turning 10. And therefore, there really isn't much more to tell about my life. So perhaps you wouldn't mind hearing more about my family? I'll start with my father. Dr. Daniel Adams was a very well-esteemed doctor here in Mont Vernon. He was also very involved in the community. He was elected to be the member of the superintending committee of our school here. He served on that committee for 10 years. His brother Jonathan Adams also served on the same committee. He served for 9 years. My father had a controlling influence on education, temperance, and morality. He was an orator for the temperance movement. And as an abolitionist, he spoke on the need to do away with slavery. There was a man who lived in Amherst, and when he would hear Mont Vernon mentioned, he would often say, Mont Vernon, 'twas nothing but a community of savages until the advent of Dr. Adams coming to town, and he brought civilization to that town. When I was 6 years old, my father and 12 other men petitioned the Senate and House of Representatives to establish the Mont Vernon Circulating Library, and they succeeded. However, our library did not have a home. In 1850, the Appleton Academy was built. In 1850, the library moved to the Appleton Academy. Father was elected to the state senate in 1838, and he was re-elected in 1840. In 1840, he was also the Mont Vernon representative to the committee for the Hillsborough County Common School Convention. Did I tell you education was very important to my father? In fact, Father even wrote textbooks. He wrote Adams' Arithmetic, the Scholar's Arithmetic, and a geography textbook. And there were many editions of these books, and so they were in extensive use for many years. My parents, they sold our farm in 1838, but they moved just down the street the other way, and they boarded at Father's brother-in-law, Asa Kendall's place. So they lived with Uncle Asa and Aunt Lydia. Today, that home is known as Sylvia Nicholas's house. Father and Mother removed to Keene in 1846. There they lived until their dying days, and they are buried in that city. In 1832, my brother Daniel went away to school. Father wrote to him quite frequently. Sometimes my sister Nancy and my mother would add a note to those letters. One such letter was sent to Daniel when he was 17 years old. Nancy wrote that she was sorry that she did not play with his bat and ball as he had bid her, for Daniel left at home thinking Nancy would enjoy using it. After prep school, Daniel went to Yale College. He graduated Yale in 1835. Then he continued on to Harvard Medical School and graduated in 1838. Daniel was home for a year, helping Father with his medical profession. By 1839, Daniel went to New York City and set up his own medical practice as a vaccine physician. While there, Daniel started playing baseball with the newly formed New York Baseball Club. He played there for several years. By 1845, the Knickerbocker Baseball Club was being started, and Daniel went to that team. By 1846, the Knickerbockers were playing across the river in Hoboken, New Jersey at the Elysian Fields. My brother became known as Doc Adams in baseball. He was also selected to be the president of the Knickerbocker Baseball Club, and he served 6 terms from 1847 till 1861. Daniel was very involved with the perfecting of the game. He was there right when in its infancy. So Daniel manufactured all the balls used by these teams, and he oversaw the making of the bats. My brother also wanted to standardize the way they played. My brother Doc, that sounds funny calling my brother that, but he worked hard to standardize the equipment and the rules of the game. Many teams had their own rules. Another thing Daniel wanted was to end the game after 9 innings. For prior to that, teams would show up and they would choose a number. Let's play to a certain number of aces. If they chose a high number, those games would last for days. for they would start in the afternoon and would need to finish off because on the count of nightfall. 9 innings made a lot of sense to Daniel. These are some of my brother's other ideas he thought of. Daniel thought there should be a player in the infield, and so he created and developed the shortstop position in 1849. He was the very first to occupy that spot. He also thought the distance between the bases should be 90 feet, and the distance from pitcher's base to home should be 45. Daniel thought there should be 9 men on a team. 4, they would show up to play, and some members of this team, only 7 would show up, and this team perhaps 10 or 11 might show up. They needed to standardize that as well, and Daniel thought 9 men on a team was just the right amount. Daniel, my brother, Daniel Doc Adams, was elected the presiding officer of the first convention of 15 New York baseball clubs. Later, he was also elected to chair the Rules Committee, which was to standardize the rules of the game. Daniel brought his ideas to this committee. And so, at the convention, they wrote what my brother authored. He authored the laws of baseball, which became the rules for all teams to play by. One historian calls my brother first among the fathers of baseball, for he was there right from its infancy. My brother Daniel stopped playing baseball after he got married and was starting his own family. He ended up raising his family in New Haven, Connecticut, and that is where he lived until he died in 1899 at the age of 85. I really enjoyed my years living here in Mont Vernon. I do wish I could have lived here longer. I would have loved to lived with my family and in our town much longer. However, it does give me great joy that you have come to visit me here, and that you are learning about me, my family, and all the other good people here in Green Lawn. Thank you very much.